Welcome to Decent Christian Music Talk. I'm Eric McClanahan. Um, I'm here today with an all-star panel of CCM gurus and fans. I'm with Kylan Savage from Church Jams Now. How you doing, Kylan?
I'm good. I'm a little confused why I got invited on, but I'll accept it. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm far
You're
from a
welcome.
guru. I'm I've told you multiple
You're
times.
lo-
I'm a chaos goblin. As you know, you and Josh have both been on my show. You can attest that
yeah.
I shouldn't be here, but I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming on. Then I've got Kelsey Kramer McGinnis, who writes for Christianity Today. How you doing, Kelsey?
Hello, I'm great. Thanks for having me. This is so
Yeah,
fun.
thanks for coming on. I'm excited to have you on. Then I got Josh Balog here, who writes for Jesus Freak Hideout and was my right hand man for the CCM tournament last year. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing great. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
All right.
I, can I
Go
just
ahead.
all right, Chaos Goblin mode is active. I love that we're all wearing caps today. We all
Yeah,
got we're like the cap crew. I love it.
yeah. Like,
um, we should have got matching caps. We could have said we're
Oh,
like
I
All Star
know.
United
All right.
or something.
For CCM for the CCM tournament 2025, we'll get some hats made.
All right. I guess well, you all can see the bracket now, right?
We can.
yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking we'd go, through each first round matchup and y'all can give me your prediction or what you want to happen for each one. Does that work?
I love that.
Sure.
I love that.
Sounds good. Love
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
All right, so the 70s and 80s region, the one is aiming. Well, first, let me tell you kind of how my seating for this worked. It's based only on Spotify monthly listeners.
Ooh.
Um,
Oh,
so that kind of took the human error out of it on my end
interesting.
and made for some really weird placements of some of these. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue with it once I started, but then uh, the Chaos Goblin will probably like it because it's a little chaotic.
It's wild. I'm
Um,
here for it.
I'm surprised Sandy Patty has more monthly listeners on Spotify than Carmen. Well, I guess that makes sense.
yeah, a
Hmm.
lot of them were baffling to me. Like I don't know if you can see that DC Talk is an 11 seed,
That's wild.
so people are not doing
Wow.
a lot of DC Talk Spotify playing
Oh
apparently.
man. Yeah.
See, I wonder how much that has to do though with the hashtag CD revival, right? I feel like specifically a lot of these
Could be.
older artists that maybe didn't cross over in the way that, say Amy Grant did, uh, more people are maybe just like listening on older media, right? And aren't, the Spotify numbers aren't necessarily a true litmus test of their listenership. I don't
Well,
know.
when me and Josh were getting dogged for leaving Whiteheart off last year, my defense was that they only had like 15,000 monthly listeners, and that's why they're also a 15 seed
Yeah.
this year. But some of the people were like, well, we listen to them on vinyl and CD and all this. So yeah, I guess that can explain some of it.
Right.
But um,
People could still be mad at DC Talk just for still being on intermission too. Who knows? There might be more coming.
yeah, everybody has worn out their discography by
Yeah.
now, so there's
That's right.
yeah. All right, so I guess if y'all are cool with it, we'll just start from the top and go down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
70s and 80s, we've got Amy Grant as the one seed and Steve Taylor as the 16. Amy Grant has 115,000 monthly listeners to Steve Taylor's 10,000 monthly listeners. So, Kylan, what do you see happening there?
Well, obviously, Amy Grant's gonna win. Especially if everyone just leaves comments saying Amy Grant. I'm definitely a big Amy Grant fan. I got my little uh my two Amy Grant vinyl
I
records
see
up
that.
behind me. I had Heart in Motion on CD, but I actually took it down to actually listen to it on a road trip recently.
Oh, nice.
Um, I love Amy Grant. I honestly, listeners of Church Jams now will know that we covered Squint by Steve Taylor relatively recently. And as big of a Newsboys fan as I was for a long time, I was relatively unfamiliar with Steve Taylor until we started our show about, 3 years ago. Since then, I've come to love Steve Taylor, and I'm a little bummed that he's going up against Amy Grant because he's going to get demolished, and I think he deserves to at least move on to the next round. But what are you going to do?
It's brutal. Yeah, he's not winning that one. I don't see that happening at all.
Not at
No.
all. He's going to get destroyed, which is a bummer. But maybe we can use this as an opportunity to just tell people to listen to more Steve Taylor.
True. And uh, he used to be somewhat active on Twitter. When the artists find this and put it out there for their fans, it can change things. But I
That's
mean,
true.
Amy Grant
That's
was
true.
involved with it last year too. So
Mm-hmm.
see what happens there. All right, 8 and 9 is Sandy Patty and Carmen. Both
Such
of
a wild matchup.
those.
Yeah.
Sandy Patty, 100,000 monthly listeners. Carmen, 85,000 monthly listeners.
I'm gonna say Carmen is gonna take that one. Just the position he occupies in the cultural memory is gonna carry him, I think, through that one. Sandy Patty, lovely voice. I mean, like a voice that truly could have, I mean, well, did do great things, but I mean, is underappreciated, I think. But yeah, I think Carmen's drama is gonna carry him through that.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm honestly trying to think what artist or band Five Iron Frenzy fans are going to jump on since Five Iron is not in this year's, and I think Carmen might be the pick. You know what I'm
Carmen
saying?
might.
So
Could
he
be.
might get carried by some of the crazy Five Iron fans. Crazy, I put in quotes
I,
and don't mean disparagingly at all. Um,
I almost took the
don't come
Supertones
after me.
off, but then I realized there
Oh,
would not be a single ska band, and
that's fine.
um,
That would be a travesty.
it would be that would be the first travesty. Yep. What did we
First of
get?
many,
We
I'm
did a
sure.
travesty counter last year. I think we ended up with like 46 travesties. Like every time somebody said something was a travesty about the tournament,
Statistically
we were
impossible, but we did
keeping
it.
a tally. Yeah. All right. And then the next matchup is number 5, Andre Crouch, and number 12, the Imperials. What do y'all think
Interesting.
there?
Fun fact: as what I think I'm potentially the youngest person here. I don't know what either of these are.
I don't know what either of these are.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
clue. No clue.
Well, the Imperials, I think they started out almost like a Southern gospel group, and then they started getting a little bit new wavy and
Mhm.
uh, kind of became a CCM band there
Sounds
midway through their
rad.
career. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
where
Andre
Russ
Crouch was
Taff, I
just a
think,
powerhouse
started with the
vocalist.
Imperials.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? I might actually
Um,
know the Imperials.
Andre Crouch has 150,000 monthly listeners, which was kind of surprising to me. I thought, I, I mean, that's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think there? Anybody have any strong opinions?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Andre's going to win that
Andre
one pretty
Crouch.
handily.
Yeah. 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 That'll be
All
a good
right.
win.
Well, now I'm
And
obviously going to
then
vote for the
go ahead.
Imperials. I'm going to vote for the Imperials because I'm just a contrarian.
You will probably appreciate their if you look up some of their pictures and stuff, the way they
I
changed their
did.
image
Yeah.
around from the yeah. Um, number 4, Keith Green against number 13, Phil Keggy. That's a rough one.
Dang.
That is a
Yeah, that's a
really
bummer.
tough one. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that one's
Yeah.
rough.
I hope I hope that one ends like 50.5 to 49 point whatever the math is. I'm not even going to do it in my head, but just really close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Phil Keggy, he went out first round last year, didn't he?
Oh man.
Oh,
I think he
man.
did.
That's gonna happen
Trying
again,
to find him
but
on here.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
don't
went
see
up
him
against
pulling an upset
Switchfoot
though.
first round last year.
Oh,
So
Oh,
gosh. Yeah.
jeez,
That's
Now what are
rough.
you
yeah.
gonna do?
Yeah. This one, at least I
I
feel,
think
will be a little closer.
Yeah, it should be. But Keith Green, I think he made it to the Sweet 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow.
Rich Mullins, I put in the 70s and 80s because the 90s is just so stacked.
Right.
It's but half of his output was in the 80s, if not more. So
Right.
Yeah,
and Awesome God was like 89, I think. So
It
that makes
counts.
sense.
yeah, I'm fine with it. And then
Yeah.
Rich Mullins against Twyla Paris. I don't think that's going to go well for Twyla.
No.
No.
No, no, poor Twyla.
Yeah, I want someone
Okay,
sometime to do a
go ahead.
deep dive and figure out how many weddings, figure out like if Twyla Paris was the most wedding used
Mm,
CCM artist of all time in the 80s and 90s. I need someone to do a dissertation on that sometime because
for sure.
that's my hypothesis.
It's very possible. Um, this next one is I hate this one. Striper number 3 against Larry Norman 14.
Striper have that
Uh,
many more monthly listeners than Larry Norman.
Striper has
Listen,
156,000 monthly listeners to Larry Norman's 42,000.
Yeah.
listen. The kids these days don't know about Larry Norman.
The kids.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, okay. So once again, this is another. So we've covered both Striper and Larry Norman on Church Jams now. Uh, Larry Norman, once again, before the show started, I was unfamiliar, and all of us at Church Jams now have become Larry Norman evangelists. So much so that I think last year in the tournament he was up against NF, right?
Very possibly.
I think so because I used Chat GPT to write a sad song about how Larry Norman got beaten by NF. Because it was like right when like Chat GPT like started to become a thing. Uh I think Striper's gonna beat Larry out again, and I'm really upset about it. But
Mm,
what are you gonna do?
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What do you think,
maybe
Kelsey?
we make it
You
an
have a
assignment. If you're gonna vote for Striper, you have to go listen to the Larry Norman CD, "Only Visiting This Planet."
Yes.
Be like the
Yeah.
assignment.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling a coworker today who he loves Striper. I was like, man, they're going to have a rough matchup in the first round. They're going against Larry Norman. I said, who? So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Kids these
I
days, they
I
don't
think
know.
much like Carmen, Striper's drama and their dramatic persona is going to carry them and has carried them through in the public imagination of Christian rock. Larry Norman is an
that's
unfortunate like casualty of lost to history for a lot of folks, but Striper,
yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
They're still around too, making music now,
mhm.
so they have that in their favor.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's true too.
If Larry Norman
Um,
dressed more like a wasp or like a yellow jacket, he might go further.
Yeah, he needed more costumes.
He
That was his
did. That was
downfall.
his only problem.
That was his downfall. Lack of costumes.
all right. Next is Petra against the Winans. Um,
Mm,
it's probably going to go Petra just because the audience, at least on CCM Twitter, seems to be more geared towards the rock artists, and
For
that
sure.
they've pretty
Yeah.
much been around longer than
yeah,
most people have been alive.
Yeah.
yeah.
I imagine they'll win on name recognition alone, like most people, if they didn't make a concentrated effort to listen to gospel, which that would have been probably
Yeah.
more that at that time frame.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then keeping with the Winans theme, BB and CC Winans had way more monthly listeners than I would have expected, 227,000
Wow.
against
Wow.
Whiteheart's 16,000.
Yeah, yeah. Cece Winans has stayed so relevant. So people know who she is. That will for sure put them over Whiteheart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think CC was my very first CCM CD, the Alone in His Presence CD.
Really?
That's great.
Yeah, I Yeah, I was into I was scared of the rock music, when I first started getting into CCM. I'd been taught that it was the devil's music for the first 13 or 14 years of my life. So when I finally started digging into CCM, I went with the four hymns and the CC Winans and kind of the chiller stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Whiteheart had a big contingent last year. People mad at us for not putting them in
Here's the
the
thing though.
tournament.
I
So
I I think that's like, honestly, I think that's like a small but vocal minority, right? Like I can totally see that being a situation in which there are a couple people that caused a stink, but the voters aren't going to show up for Whiteheart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think when
yeah,
push comes to shove, I don't think they're going to really get the votes.
Yeah. I would also love to know how many of those vocal minority are like regular listeners of Whiteheart's music. I'd be very curious to know
Yeah.
how many of them are really, really listening to
That's
that on a
true.
regular basis. I don't know.
yeah. They were a bit of a blind spot for me, if I'm honest. There's not. I don't think I have a whole lot of like blind spots with the popular artists, but Whiteheart.
Mhm.
I knew they played on Four Hymns, the Message album, and that they were somewhat popular, but I
Yeah.
didn't expect to get chewed out by multiple people over them not being in it. And
Yeah.
it actually happened again a couple weeks ago. Somebody posted about last year's tournament, and somebody's like, Whiteheart's not in it, so it makes the whole thing invalid. Like,
See,
Of course.
yeah. So now is the chance to, like, all the Whiteheart fans. Come on, man.
Rally.
yeah,
If you're serious, let's do it.
yeah.
Uh,
All right. So, who do you all think will win out of that region?
overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amy Grant will win
Uh,
that.
I think
I'm
so.
like 90% sure.
I don't know. I personally, it's gonna be Amy Grant or Striper. I feel like I could see Striper pulling some weird underdog thing, and but I don't know. Who knows?
I think you're going to get. I think Rich Mullins will be down there in the final four of
Yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
bracket for
Yeah.
sure. He
Yeah.
might go up against. I don't know if he could go up against Amy Grant. No, yeah, he'd
I
have to
wouldn't be
beat her in the
surprised if
final
it
four.
came down to, could it come down to, sorry, I'm looking at
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. To Rich
Yeah.
Mullins and Amy
Rich
Grant.
Mullins and Amy Grant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
No,
could
they'd
see
have to
that.
face each other in the final four
Yeah.
of the bracket,
Oof.
I guess,
Oof.
which that'd be rough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Mullins was the closest to upsetting Five Iron Frenzy last year. It was
Oh
came down to the
right.
wire, so
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. But people like Shane Claiborne tweeted vote for Rich and things like that. So when people
That
with
helps.
120,000 followers are putting that out, that's going to get a lot of votes
Yeah.
on
That's
that guy.
true.
So
That's true. But
um
Now that he,
When Amy Grant comments Amy Grant,
yeah.
who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
plus Amy Grant fans know how to actually vote in the polls now, so she might actually get
Yeah, no, they've learned. They've
Hopefully.
learned from their mistakes,
Hopefully.
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 For anybody who's watching that doesn't know, my assumption is that somebody put something in some Amy Grant Facebook group or something telling people to go to my Twitter account and vote for Amy. And instead of actually clicking on the poll, they were just typing her name in the comments. And I got, a dozen or so people just saying Amy Grant in the mentions of that tweet. I'm like, you've got to actually click in the poll.
But I love that that's
All
become
right.
like, it's become like a little bit of like an inside joke with CCM Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
become like, it's like
It's
a
funny.
shared language, right? It's part of the lexicon of
Yep.
CCM Twitter. Just Amy Grant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think between each region, I'll just have y'all tell a little about, yourself. Kelsey, do you want to tell people where your journey with CCM started, where it's gone?
Yeah, sure. So I very much a kid of the 90s. Grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah, very, evangelical in a Southern Baptist household where Some of my earliest like musical memories are of Amy Grant's Heart in Motion. Like I'm pretty sure I know every lyric off of that album still. We were at Amy Grant and Stephen Curtis Chapman house. We were not Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith house. It was Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman. And I need to like come up with a category for the kind of CCM house that is, because I feel like it's a specific kind of flavor. Because kind of
Yes.
like you, there wasn't a lot of like the hard Christian rock in my household. It was pretty like pretty tame stuff. I remember at one point someone must have gifted our family the DC Talk Jesus Freak CD. I think they must have given it to my dad as a gift. I found it and put it in the CD player, and I was like shocked. And my parents were sort of like visibly uncomfortable at that music. So we were like that kind of CCM household. So yeah, that's like very much. I worked in a Christian bookstore in high school. I was in the music department. So like a good chunk of my days there were spent, helping people locate, my child likes this music. What can I give them that's Christian? That was very much my job. Or taking phone calls from people who had heard a song on the radio and would give me like a word and say, I heard a song, it's a man sings it,
Yes.
and they're talking about Jesus. And so I would go on a hunt for the music.
Oh,
So yes, I have been very immersed in Christian music. The years I worked in a Christian bookstore were the years of sort of the transition out of traditional CCM into like the worship music sphere that we have now. I was also a worship leader in high school and college, so that kind of accompanied my journey. And then I went to grad school, and now I write about and teach. Teach worship in the arts, teach some other music related courses, and also write on worship music, congregational song, and music more broadly for Christianity Today now.
So cool.
You had an article a couple days ago that kind of was getting a lot of traction about who tells the story of
Yeah.
CCM, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was really good stuff.
No, thanks. That was a
Um,
fun one to work on.
I guess we'll move on to the 90s now. This region I feel like was really loaded. Can you all see it?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
sure
Okay.
can.
All right. Number one, Sixpence None the Richer with 9.5 million monthly listeners. That's what I guess having a song like Kiss Me will do.
Yep.
Against Plank Eye, who was another one that I got a lot of people saying should have been in last year, but they've only got 7,000 listeners per month, the lowest in the tournament.
Wow.
But
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. They're a great underground alternative band, but they weren't like, at least at the time, super widely known. They would have been like the underground scene, like the independent crindy scene in the
Yeah.
Right.
'90s. Several great albums, but I don't think they're gonna make a
Yeah.
dent in the Sixpence juggernaut there.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
Were
But
their albums more early 90s or mid? I can't even remember.
I think their
they
first one,
they're
if I remember correctly, came out in '94. The Spark,
Okay.
I think,
yeah.
was the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah. Seems right.
yeah, I think that's right. They had a track on the Seltzer, the
That's what
first Seltzer
I was
album.
just about to
Yeah,
ask.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
like the
yeah, that was
only
95.
that was the only
Commonwealth or BC or something
like
like that would have
artist
been
Yeah,
track I
one of the
know.
probably one of those.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
This
All
is my
right.
era, guys. I could talk about this
the
era all night.
Sixpence is gonna dominate
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. Then we got number 8, MXPX against number 9, Delirious. MXPX made the final four last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
MXPX is
Um,
gonna
Yeah.
because they're also, as opposed to Delirious, they're a lot more continually active online,
Yeah.
right? Like Mike has a podcast. Like they're still coming out with stuff. Just came out with an album like last year. Like they've still got the visibility that I don't think Delirious has necessarily,
No.
especially on a platform like Twitter or
Yeah.
X,
yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I could
Yeah.
so last year MXPX would like the tweets and things that people would say about them or tag them in and all this, but they wouldn't comment on the actual tournament. I almost feel like they were torn between wanting, to win, but not wanting to be a CCM band.
Right, right,
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
I'm reading too much into it, but I was like,
Yeah,
no,
No,
that
this
I
is
get
that
that.
going
I
on.
can see.
I get that. Well,
Yeah.
I think like moving past this, I mean, essentially, right? If our predictions are correct, it's going to be MXPX versus Sixpence in the next round. That'll be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it will.
Mm.
And the
I
number
think
of people
MXPX
who
would win that
commented
though.
last year, yeah, the number of comments I got last year, people who didn't know Sixpence None the Richer were a Christian band, like blew my mind.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, didn't it, you, Josh? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was
I
it was
mean,
wild. Like people not realizing that they started in Christian music in '94 and had what 2 excellent albums before Kiss Me even released in '97, '98. So
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of
interesting.
annoying, but
Now they know.
And then Josh, you have people like me that start a podcast and
trash a perfect
and
album.
trash that album. You know what? Fun fact though, it is in the works that I think we may potentially revisit that album in the future. So we'll see.
Yes.
I know.
Thank you.
So people that may not be aware, Josh and I had a fake internet beef for a long time because one of the first episodes of my podcast, we listened to Sixpence and totally trashed it. A stance that I have since rescinded.
And then you
Hey,
trash Jars of
I still
Clay
came on.
Oh,
self-titled
and then
album.
Jars of Clay. I know. I don't know. I'm you know, Josh, I appreciate you being on this call with me. I know there's so much ire between us, but I appreciate the fact that we can work
No,
through it for this.
it's all for the
All right,
fans,
and
man.
then
That's right.
uh next is Newsboys at number 5, Audio Adrenaline at 12. I will get many questions about which Newsboys they're supposed to be voting for. So I
Right.
toyed with putting Newsboys in the 90s and Newsboys in the 10s and 20s, but
Mm,
I
Oh
really
gosh.
just didn't want 2 spots being taken up by the Newsboys. So I
right.
figured
Yeah.
90s is probably, with at least, the CCM Twitter folks,
Yeah.
the 90s version is probably the favorite. So yeah, what do y'all see happening? That's a pretty big battle.
Yeah. I feel like
Two youth group staples.
how many listeners does I'm so curious about Newsboys, who's listening to Newsboys these days. Because those
Newsboys have
numbers have got to be
1.3 million.
inflated. Yeah,
So
those numbers have
wild.
got to be inflated by like the God's Not Dead kind of franchise and
Yeah.
all that
Oh yeah.
stuff at this point. You know what I mean? Like I feel like those listener numbers don't reflect what
Oh,
uh
definitely.
what is happening here. Um, but I don't
For
know.
sure.
I still think the name recognition, the Michael Tate, I feel like that might carry it over, although that will make me sad, but that's my prediction of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be one thing if you could get people to only think about the '90s catalog for both of those bands, and I think it would be very close. But if they're taking in the
Yeah,
totality of all the iterations of the Newsboys and Audio Adrenaline, then I think it pretty clearly slants towards the Newsboys at that point, just
yeah.
because they're still active, like Kelsey was saying.
Yeah. All right. And then Michael W. Smith as a 4 and Jars of Clay as a 13.
Oh
Oh,
man. What to say about this? Hmm.
Jars of Clay, 199,000 monthly listeners. Michael W. Smith, 1.7 million monthly listeners.
I'm curious, why did
pulling
you
for the
put Michael
upset.
W. Smith in the 90s and not the 80s? I mean, I know
I,
he's timeless at this point, right? So
yeah. No, I thought about it, and then I realized that Worship album from 2000 is actually his biggest selling album. So I kind of
yeah,
went just like with
yeah,
the middle.
And split
yeah,
the
it is his
difference.
biggest selling album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle to know where to place him because yeah, he was so. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But
I'm pulling
I
for the
feel like.
upset. I don't
I'm
know.
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna decline and comment on Jars of Clay.
We don't want
You
anybody,
would.
I'm with you. I'm a little bit team Jars of Clay is overrated. But I
Ooh.
also don't I'll be sad if they if they lose that matchup also.
In the first round, I know that's tough. That's a tough first round.
I feel like Jars of Clay is going to have a little bit more of the online fan base than Michael
sure.
W. I mean,
Yeah.
I think people like Michael W. Smith. I don't know if as many people are like voting fans of Michael W. Smith. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless Michael
Yeah,
W.
I think
Smith
Georgia Clay is
becomes,
going to upset.
if Michael W. Smith becomes the Amy Grant of 2024, where people just comment Michael W. Smith throughout.
I don't know.
I,
There's something about Amy
yeah.
Grant loyalty. I don't think Michael W. Smith has that going for him. I
Yeah,
don't know.
Sure.
I could be wrong.
I agree.
Could be wrong. But
No, I think you're right. We'll see though. Uh, third day, 6 seed against DC Talk 11 seed.
oh
I think DC
It's
Talks.
got to be DC Talk, right?
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Gotta be.
I toyed with putting third day in the 2000s group because they were probably a little more popular in the 2000s, I would say.
Yeah,
But but they're also pretty beloved by 90s CCM fans. So I decided to
Yeah.
put them there.
They started getting more radio airplay like 99 forward, so that's
Yeah.
they could have fit 2000s as well.
Yeah. I feel like their vibe though is more 90s than a lot of the ones in the 2000s.
for sure.
Yeah. Um and then Jackie Velasquez against the OC Supertones. Jackie Velasquez has 2.3 million monthly listeners, which was surprising to
That
me.
is surprising. Does she have so we've talked about this on Church James now occasionally with like bands that have a lot more listeners than you anticipated. Like, does she have a song on like a soundtrack or a couple playlists or something?
She
Like
puts out
she had
Spanish albums.
there you go.
So she's kind of, got her feet in two different
Yeah.
pools there.
A lot
Yeah.
more global reach than the OC
Yeah.
Supertones.
She
Yeah.
was in a movie, but it was like, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
don't remember what it was
Chasing
called, but
Poppy. I remember that.
Oh
yes,
yeah.
yes, that's what it was.
Yeah. Hers was her A Heavenly Place was my first CCM album. This is Jackie Velasquez, my first album ever. That was mine. So I'm a little bit of a Jackie Velasquez fan. But I'd be surprised if she beat the OC Super in this particular. It does not surprise me that she has more listeners globally
Right.
than the OC Supertones. But much like Five Iron Frenzy, I think the Supertones will have the nostalgia vote.
They get the
Think
ska
so.
vote, so
Yeah, if there's no
They'll get,
5 iron, then yeah.
yeah, they'll get the ska vote. Yeah.
All right. Stephen Curtis Chapman as a 7 and Starflyer 59 as a 10.
This is
Stephen
the
Curtis
weirdest
Hate it.
Chapman has
matchup to
already
me so
tweeted
far.
about it.
This
Yeah, he
is the
did.
weirdest of like these don't belong in the same cinematic universe.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
Right.
how they got together. Yeah. I mean, Stephen Curtis Chapman's gonna blow that out of the water.
I don't know
Yeah.
though. Okay, so the only thing that makes me think Starflyer might pull ahead. So we just recorded a Starflyer episode. I think it's gonna drop this next week. So Josh
Nice.
from Church James Now is a huge Starflyer fan, and from everything that he's told me, there is once again a small but vocal minority that like of people that freaking love Starflyer 59.
For sure.
I could see that that kind of fan base mobilizing. I don't know, but I feel like there's
Well,
potential for that.
isn't he on Twitter too? I think he's on Twitter, isn't he? Maybe not.
Uh,
Maybe.
I
I
don't
follow
know.
him on
I
either
don't. I
Twitter or
doubt.
Facebook.
I doubt he runs his Twitter account because he's kind of a
Okay.
recluse from what I get.
Yeah.
But there is a Starflyer 59 Facebook group that's very active.
Yeah.
So that could turn into a battle.
I don't know. If it gets shared on
Um,
Facebook, yeah, I think there could be an upset there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
But
thing. The long
Steven,
and the short of it is if a fan gets a hold of it or an artist themselves retweets it or sends it out to
Mhm.
multiple places, that changes the game completely versus just the natural organic vote. So
Yep.
Stephen Curtis Chapman was into it last year. He was tweeting
I
about it. He had his wife
yeah.
tweeting about it.
I can see him campaigning. So I
Yeah.
mean there it could yeah, he could pull ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should be interesting. Um, Kirk Franklin as a 2, PFR as a 15.
The heck is this?
Yeah,
I love PFR, but they're not winning that one. Kirk
Not at
Franklin's got
all.
too much of a
Yeah.
following.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be Kirk Franklin for sure.
Yeah.
although there are way more rock fans than there are gospel fans, I think, in our little community. But it
That's
depends
true,
on how
but I
how much
think
traction it gets.
I think even if you're not like a huge fan, I feel like for people that are maybe a little more casual CCM fans, when they see that matchup, I think Kirk Franklin has a little more brand recognition, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if
Yeah.
like that seems like the kind of thing if someone's going to vote and they're like, I don't really know what either of these are, but I'm still voting, they're gonna click Kirk Franklin. I think that's
Yeah.
gonna put him over the top.
Yeah.
Who do y'all see winning the region?
Well,
MXPX.
yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that I think in the second round, MXPX versus Sixpence, because I could see Sixpence doing it if they were up against some of these other ones. But yeah, I think it's going to be MXPX.
How did Sixpence do last year? I don't remember. I don't think they not make it super
Let's
far.
see. I can find them. I will tell you. Let's see.
The only other thing that I could see is maybe one of the youth group bands like Newsboys or Jars of Clay or DC Talk kind of pushing their way towards the final two, final four of
Yeah.
that bracket and then maybe making some
Sixpence.
noise.
Sixpence went against Kirk Franklin in the first round. I think they won that, and then they met Amy Grant in the second round and
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah, I think this is a weird one. Like I think weirdly Stephen Curtis Chapman is going to get kind of knocked out here just because it's like he doesn't belong in this universe. There's so much more nostalgia for millennials in this, and
Mhm.
unless you were like really in CCM, like your parents were in CCM, I feel like he benefits less from that than the youth group bands, which is a bummer for me,
Right.
but that's all right.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
How so MXPX was Final Four last year? Was that?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they
Yeah.
were in the final four.
Yeah.
They
I think they just
they
have the online presence to
Yeah.
push them forward.
yeah, and they're buddies with Five Iron Frenzy, I think, and with all the Five Iron Frenzy fans voting, I think MXPX got a
Yeah.
residual bump from that.
Yeah.
Um, Josh, tell us about your history with CCM and where you're at with it now, if you don't mind.
Sure, I don't mind at all. It's a long history, but I'll try to keep it shortish. I was raised in a home that listened to only Christian music, and my parents would have been listening to Larnell Harris and Amy Grant, like her 80s stuff and 70s stuff. And they would have been listening to Sandy Patty. And so I was kind of raised on the more CCM pop side of things. My first cassette tape that I was given was Michael W. Smith's Picture Perfect. And the first CD I ever bought with my own money was Stephen Curtis Chapman's Heaven in the Real World.
Nice.
Um, so that's kind of where I started. Then I was taken to the Christian bookstore like at least once or twice a month, and I would go and I would just listen to every demo I could get. I'd even have the workers open up some of them so I could hear others that looked interesting to me. And I started making some more of my own choices on music, and that's when I got into Jars of Clay in '95 and DC Talk in '92 and Third Day and a lot of the youth group bands because that was kind of the era that I grew up in as a teenager. And then I went away to college and I worked at Family Christian Bookstore for a few years in like 2002, 2003 um, time frame, and have listened to Christian music ever since I really first got into it when I was 10. So I'm going on like 32 years now of consistently listening to it, following it, and worked at Lifeway Christian Bookstore as an adult later on in my life and was over the music department and did the very same thing that Kelsey did, where I'd field phone calls where they
Oh,
mention,
nice.
"Hey, this song is about Jesus. It has God in it and says something about love," and or they try to sing it to you over the phone, and you have to figure out what song they're talking about, which was
Yes.
my favorite game,
Those
and
are
I
the
was actually
best.
pretty good at it. I was pretty good at it. I because it's top 40, so there's really only maybe 40 or 50 songs that they could be
Mhm.
potentially referencing, but that was one of my favorite jobs, just kind of being over the music department and help influence what people would buy, helping them find stuff. But started writing for Jesus Freak Hideout in 2017, and guesting on the JFH podcast in 2018. And I don't know, I like to talk about Christian music and its history and read about it. I just read Dr. Leah Payne's book, God Gave Rock and Roll to You, just finished it. Yeah, I love doing stuff like this. So thanks for inviting me and having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. All right. In the 2000s, number one Skillet against number 16 Falling Up. That's that's all my doings, putting Falling Up in there.
Eric, how do you feel about that? I need to
Yeah.
ask you, how do you feel about that?
Do you really need to ask me?
He's already depressed.
I know that just like that makes me so sad personally, just for you.
So last year it was easier for me to be non-partial because like
Right.
there was no Falling Up, there was no Starflyer 59.
Right.
Some of my big favorites were not in it, and unfortunately Josh had all his favorites in there, and
So now it's your turn.
now it's my turn. I may sneak a little link into the Falling Up Discord or something, but
There you go.
um, I'm sure Skillet will probably still get through it. They got 8.6 million monthly listeners.
That's wild.
So to Falling Up's 48,000. Anybody see an upset there, or is it going to be Skillet?
I mean, I hope so. I'm not a Skillet fan
No,
at all.
me neither.
You know, we don't have to get into that. And yeah, I want Falling Up to win. I don't think it's gonna happen, unfortunately, but I really wish it would.
Same. Yeah.
And Kylan and his Church Jams Now podcast just released an episode going over Falling Up's debut album,
We did.
and
And
it
even
was
even
an
at
interesting listen. I'm not going to
e-
spoil anything.
even after that, I want Falling Up to win 1,000% over Skillet any day.
Okay. All right, 8 and 9, Mary Mary against Under Oath.
Under
That's
Oath. I mean, that's just
quite a matchup.
Yeah.
I did get some people mad at me that Mary Mary weren't in it last year, though. Surprisingly.
Listen, people, there's only
But
64 slots. That's all there is to it.
exactly.
What do you want?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by my count, we have 26 new ones in this year. So that just goes to show that there's really more
I think
big time Christian artists.
yeah. I think the Mary Mary people are probably similar to the White Heart people. Right? Like I don't
There,
think they're gonna show up to vote. I think they'll
there
show
was a
up
lot
afterwards.
less Mary Mary people, though, than
Yeah.
Whiteheart.
I think they'll show up to complain when Mary Mary loses, but I don't think they'll show up to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
If
mean,
that's not
Under
at
Oath,
least an 80-20 win for Under Oath, I would be surprised. Like,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially because like they're only chasing safety is turning 20 this year. Like that's just already going to be kind of on people's minds. I think if you look at like age demographics of people on Twitter, I mean, Under Oath is taking that handily.
I know Mason Meninga has said that Under Oath are actually the most important Christian band of the 2000s. Which
Okay,
when
Mason.
you look at kind of the Christian metalcore scene in the 2000s, and that they were kind of the biggest dog that arena. I mean, I
For
could see
sure.
it.
Yeah, I mean, within like a certain subset, like a certain, a certain sphere of that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, who knows?
All right. Let's see. We got number 5 Casting Crowns against number 12 Stacy Orico.
Another fun
all right.
matchup.
There might be many people that even like Stacey Rico even like remember her. I know she had several, like 2 or 3 hit songs and even some mainstream
Mhm. Yeah.
crossover, but she hasn't been around active or done anything
Right.
really visible since then, like 20 years now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was surprised that she has 537,000 monthly listeners, so that's more than I would have anticipated. It was more than other female vocalists of the
Right.
era. A lot of them anyways. Um Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's maybe one that people have, like you said, have forgotten about, and maybe they'll see that name and be like, "Oh yeah," because Casting Crowns really didn't do a whole lot last year. I think they got beat in the first round
Oh, wow.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, Casting Crowns is sort of one of those CCM bands that like everybody knows, but I don't know if they have fans per se.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
don't know.
Yeah,
Right.
not
Yeah,
fans on
like
Twitter. If you did it on Facebook, that'd be a different story. But I think,
yeah, yeah.
Sure.
but
Sure.
Right.
I feel like the adult contemporary artists in general don't have like except for Amy Grant, don't have like the very intense fan base that a lot of the rock artists do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's right.
but could be an interesting matchup. 4 and 13 is POD against Pillar.
Oh.
Couple similar bands there. I
yeah,
don't see
POD is
Pillar
going to win
posing
that
much
one.
of a threat. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
All right.
All
And
the
then we
dad jokes
got
come to
go
mind, but
ahead.
I'll pass on saying any of them. So
Then we got Mercy Me against Reliant K. That could be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Reliant K
Easily.
will destroy.
uh, then 1,000 Foot Crutch against Emory. 1,000 Foot Crutch was one last year that people didn't understand why they were seated so high. And I explained that they have over 3 million monthly Spotify listeners. And then they continued to every matchup, people were surprised that they won. Um,
How?
so I guess they're
How I
sneaky
ask you.
popular.
Oh
yeah,
man.
that's crazy. I actually don't think I'm going to predict an upset on that one. I think Emory actually beats
Mm,
1,000 Foot Crutch.
For sure.
okay.
I think Emory's got the online presence. I think they've got fans that are more online than Thousand Foot Crutch.
I have a
I mean,
feeling
because
Thousand Foot Crutch gets benefits from being on some like gym playlists. I
Yeah,
bet they're
yeah,
on some like pump up playlists and
yeah.
I
stuff.
think they are. Yeah.
Uh,
But
eh,
but
eh,
between all the Emory guys having all the podcasts and stuff, I think people that
yeah,
are more active online are more hardcore Emory fans.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then we got Switchfoot against Anberlin, which is another matchup that I hate.
It's early,
Oh, I
early
hate
for
But
such
that
a good
one
matchup.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to move things around and take people out so that the monthly listeners would make it so that's not the matchup, but
Right.
it would it if it wasn't that, it would end up being like Reliant K against Switchfoot and other matchups that people would
Right.
despise. So this is kind of the lesser of evils
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
Uh,
I, wo- I wonder if the Switchfoot fandom is going to come out again this year. I know they did last year, but there might be some backlash um, against them for going so far. I don't know. Amberlin might take that one.
That would be interesting.
I
I'd
don't
love to see
know.
that. But I
Emberlin's a
think
personal favorite, but I think Switchfoot they had their like anniversary tour, and John Foreman just announced he's touring with.
Brandon
Brandon
Lake.
Lake.
Brandon
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lake.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're yeah, people are aware of yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think the next Switchfoot album has a potential to be huge because they put out that anniversary album with like the Jonas Brothers and
Hmm.
Owl City and all these huge artists covering their songs. Now he's going on. John Foreman's going on tour with Brandon Lake, so that's going to put him in the kind of modern adult contemporary,
Yep.
people,
Yeah.
radio listeners' minds. So if they deliver a good album, I think they could,
For sure.
possibly get back into the mainstream like they were with the Beautiful Letdown stuff.
Yep.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was a little bit nervous about the fact that Switchfoot might be like winding down as a band and John kind of be doing his
Mm,
own solo thing. Just because I know Drew Shirley
mm,
isn't with the band touring with them anymore, and he was a pretty vital member of what made up their sound for the longest time. And then they did this anniversary tour and album. So you're talking more about legacy than thinking about future stuff. And I'm wondering if they are uh, if they're kind of
mm,
done.
Oh,
I
interesting.
wouldn't be
mm.
surprised if they called it quits, but it would make me sad, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They Switchfoot were the runner up last year too.
Oh,
I think it was like 55% to 45%. I don't think it was like super close, if I remember
Did
correctly.
they ever did they ever engage? I feel like at the very end they may have said like don't vote for us or
After
something like
the
that.
day after the day after the tournament was over, they're like, "Oh, sorry, we missed this." Um, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, I think they were following all along, but they didn't want to persuade anybody's votes against Five Iron
Yeah.
Frenzy. So yeah, like the day after, they were like, "Oh, sorry, we missed this. Y'all voted for the right band anyways by voting for Five Iron Frenzy."
Bunch of
So
sweeties.
yeah,
cute.
yeah. I think Switchfoot will win it personally, but
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
I don't like that matchup.
No, it
Yeah,
hurts my
that's
heart.
hard.
Yeah. Then number 2 Lifehouse against number 15 Me Without You. Me Without You made the Elite 8 last year
Yeah.
and won Tooth and Nail tournament, so they've got
Yeah.
a pretty big online
Yeah, once again, I think it
following,
comes
I
down
think.
to the online fan presence. I
Yeah, I
think
think that's right.
I don't think Lifehouse has that. I think Lifehouse is seen as like, oh yeah, they did that one song that I did a skit to in youth group. You know what I mean? But like
Yep.
Me Without You fans, even though Me Without You hasn't come out with anything in years, still every day people will tweet, "When's the next Me Without You thing?" You know, so
Right,
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the potential Me Without You Switchfoot second round matchup either, but
Oh, yeah.
should be interesting. It would be, I mean, it would be boring if there weren't some interesting matchups in the first and second rounds. Um, Kylan, well, actually, first, who do y'all see coming out of that region
Switchfoot.
as the winner?
Oh,
I think it might come down to Reliant K and Switchfoot. Just
Yeah.
just based on the types of fans that are online, and I think Switchfoot's gonna come out with it.
Huh.
mm,
If it comes down to those two, I'm gonna pick. I think Reliant K will upset them this time. They've got new music in the works that they're working on, supposedly out this year at some point. Their fans are gonna come through.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It looks like it doesn't look like it could come down to Switchfoot
Oh
and
right.
Reliant K, right? So it could, my guess is it comes down
Oh
to
yeah.
Reliant K and Under Oath. Um,
Probably.
and Reliant K takes it. That's my guess. But I don't know. Under Oath has such a loyal fan. I love Under Oath, so I wouldn't be so mad if that happened. I'll be a little mad if that happened, but
Um, who's your all's favorite artist in the personal favorite in like the 2000s region?
oh man. Yeah, I mean I gotta say Reliant K, but Amberlyn is a close second probably for me.
Switchfoot would be my favorite of those, just because I've been with them for so long,
Yeah.
since 1997. Reliant K number 2, probably.
Mm.
I think if you look at overall discography that has connected with me, I'd have to say Me Without You.
Pillar.
Pillar, no. And for the love of God, no one go listen to the Church Names Now episode about Fireproof. That
Wait,
was a rough time.
Yeah.
It was a rough.
Fireproof the movie?
No, the album
Oh.
by Pillar.
Oh, okay.
It was a rough time. It was a rough time for all.
I'm sorry. Who did you say? I was just waiting to
Oh,
say Pillar over whoever
um,
you were.
Me Without You. Me Without
Me
You.
Without You.
Yeah.
Kylan, tell us about your history with CCM and where you're at with it now.
Yeah. So I grew up super Southern Baptist. Always. So my grandparents were in a traveling vocal group, similar to like the Gaither vocal band.
Mm,
So like Southern gospel was always a big part of my childhood. And then I actually, when I graduated high school, I went to Ocean's Edge School of Worship, associated with Calvary Chapel, uh, to study becoming a worship leader. And fun fact, I actually went to school there. It was the third year that program was around. There were only like 12 of us, and one of the other people in the same year as me was Brandon Lake. So it's wild to me to see like how he's like blown up. So I went to school
Wow.
for that, and then I went to Dallas Baptist University to study music business, and was on staff at a couple churches and stuff. And I've just, I was in a Christian Southern metal band around like 2010, 2011. Um, I kind of was a little out of the loop with CCM music for most of my 20s until about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Some friends and I decided to start a podcast called Church Jams Now, where we were three former youth group kids and current music nerds who deep dive into Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. And it's gotten me back into a lot of this music that I had kind of either didn't feel like I connected with anymore, or uh, had kind of written off. So now I'm just like back. I mean, 90% of my Spotify now, because of the podcast, is like, oh, hey, you love Anne Boleyn, right? You love Jackie Velasquez. Hey, check out this Stephen Curtis Chapman. So that's like that's like all I listen to now. So I'm like I'm back in a big way, I guess.
That's hilarious. Kylan also edits my videos, and uh, he's he's a whiz at all those things, and I know nothing. So I
Something like
really,
that.
really, really appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
All right, tens and twenties. This probably my least favorite era of popular Christian music of
Same.
all of them. But number one, NF has the most monthly listeners of anybody in the bracket at 15.9 million against Disciple, who have 179,000. And Disciple was one of the more active artists in trying to retweet things and get their fans into it last year. So I kind of felt like I owed them a spot to see what they could do this year.
For sure. And it's such a bummer they're going up against NF. I feel like NF got really far last year, right?
He did, yeah. I think final eight. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's another one. He's got the online presence. I think the way
Yeah.
he connects with a younger audience, I think, is going to translate more into votes.
All right. Next up is Maverick City Music against Chris Tomlin, 8 versus 9.
Yeah.
Anybody have any strong opinions on that?
I'm pretty sure Maverick City Music will win that one. Just online fandom is,
Interesting.
Yeah. Recency
common
bias too. Like they've been all over the
Yeah.
place the last 5 or 6 years. So I think they'll probably win that one. It'll be close, but I think they'll win that one.
Yeah.
And then we got number 5, Lauren Daigle against number 12, Sanctus Real.
I'm
I
surprised
promised
Sanctus Real is on here.
Yeah.
I promised them a spot last year because they were
Okay.
upset.
Oh,
They
yeah.
said we could
Sanctus
have.
Real are good. I was kind of a little out of left field there.
They said we could have fit into at least 3 of these regions, and you left us out. I was like, all right, well, I'll put y'all in next year. But I mean, they have what was it, 2.4 million monthly listeners. So
Really?
they're no
Wow.
slouch. Yeah.
Yeah, one time had a Sanctus Real T-shirt. I don't know where it went, but I did. I had merch. I'm not, no hate to Sanctus Real, but well, yeah, Lauren Daigle will probably win that one, just based on recognition.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lauren Daigle will win that one. I really would like to see her go up against NF in that side of the bracket to see which one could pull that out, because they both have mainstream audiences that are helping in those streaming numbers quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then Elevation Worship against Need to Breathe. Elevation have 6.6 million monthly listeners. Need to Breathe have 2.4 million.
It's respectable. I think Nita Breed's going to upset him
I
and
think
take
so.
that matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Because then, yeah, and like for these big worship bands, listeners does not necessarily equal fans. It means people
Right.
using
Yeah.
the music, which is
Right.
a different thing.
Right.
I'm curious why Elevation and not Bethel on here.
Bethel, they were in it last year and they went out in the first round. I think they had 4.4 million. So I mean, they had a a case to be on here, but I wanted to put some fresh blood in it where I could, and since they performed so poorly
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I could see Need to Breathe upsetting Elevation.
I know Need to Breathe has a lot of fans in the CCM Twitter
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Some of them saying that they are like the number one Christian rock band of the moment, but I don't know. And then let's see. Next, I combined Hillsong Worship and Hillsong United, um, because I had them both separate last year, and both of them lost in the first round, and if would have felt wrong to not have either of them in here since they both have over 5 million monthly
Right.
listeners. So
Yeah.
I just combined them. Uh, who really knows the difference between which songs were done by Hillsong
Right.
United and
Yeah. Yeah.
Hillsong Worship?
Ah,
No clue.
And then
I
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think any of the worship artists will make it outside of that first round, except for Maverick or Chris Tomlin, since they're up against each other.
yeah.
Um, I think it's an interesting thing that they're considered CCM by some people, but when I think about it, I think of worship artists as almost something separate than CCM.
Right.
It's for
That's
use
fair.
um, in congregational worship, but a lot of people aren't necessarily just listening to it for fun or for other activities other than that. So
That's
yeah, I
fair.
don't see them really making it far.
Yeah.
They're up against For King and Country. I don't know if they have a very big fan base in the CCM Twitter community or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no guess about this one. I'm sort of like I
Yeah,
would not be surprised either way because if
Right.
you, yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if For King and Country will win just because a lot of people don't like Hillsong.
Yeah,
Um,
I could see that.
yeah.
was it was it the was it the lead singer of For King and Country that was in that new The Journey to Bethlehem movie, like the movie musical? Wasn't it the lead singer of For King and
Oh
Country that was
yeah.
just in that with Antonio Banderas?
Maybe
Yes.
so.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if that helps or hurts them, but I know
I
he's
mean,
active.
I am always surprised to learn of how popular they are. Like they headline arena tours and
Yeah,
things, and I just like,
Yeah, they're a big deal
okay,
on CCM radio
yeah,
and in mainstream listeners. Like again, it would just come down to they probably don't have the Twitter following
Right.
um, that maybe Hillsong United might
But
have
but
because of
uh,
the age range.
I'm wondering if there is like something about Kelsey. You were just saying that the lead singer or whatever, someone from For King Country was in that movie. If there's a little bit more of like a recognition of a specific person, because that's sort of my thing with the sort of like big like Hillsong, Bethel, whatever worship kind of super group conglomerate, like
yeah,
whatever you want to call it. Like there's not like you can't really put a face to it. I wonder if there will be something about being able to put a face to that specific group based on other projects that might push them a little bit further ahead.
yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise
it,
me. I do not have a sense of how big their fan base is. I think you're right. They have these big tours and stuff. I just don't I don't feel like I have a good grip on how big of a fan base are we talking about here.
Mhm.
But
and then number three, Sleeping at Last against number 14, Toby Mac. Sleeping at Last, um, they were like they had like some big piano rock albums like in what like the early 2000s, I think, and played with some Christian bands and things. And I've been on their emails for like 15 years, and like every week they're emailing, "Hey, check us out on Grey's Anatomy tonight. Check us out
Interesting.
on
Yeah, they get a
whatever
lot of song
other
placements for sure.
yeah."
interesting.
Yeah,
So
but guys,
yeah, so now they
are they living in
have
extreme days?
7.4.
No, they're not. So that's what they don't have going for them right there.
exactly. I think within a certain, I think the people that are online, specifically within CCM Twitter, I think you see the name Toby Mac and you're like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Sleeping at Last has 7.4 million monthly listeners, but like I'm assuming that's people who a lot of them aren't really big fans of the band. They just who did that song that was on whatever show
Yeah,
last night.
praising it.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. So and then we got Tori Kelly as a 7 against Lecrae as a 10.
Yeah, Lecrae wins that one, I think, pretty easily. Tori Kelly's a great vocalist. I mean, amazing, but I think Lecrae will win that one.
for sure.
I think so because I don't know who Tori Kelly is. So,
Well, that's on you.
well, I
She's
told you I don't
great.
know. I don't know why I was invited here, but I
I
know
mean,
Lecrae.
yeah,
Well,
she is like one of the crossover kind of figures right now
Mm.
what's left of CCM world. I Interesting career trajectory. I don't know what's where what direction she'll go, but Lecrae just I mean yeah, he has
Right.
this singular position in the Christian music world
Yeah.
that he
Right.
yeah
I'm
well
I'm
deserved.
actually surprised he doesn't have more monthly listeners. Only 3 million.
Hmm.
I would have I would
he
have expected
he
more.
lost. I think he lost a lot of followers around the time around 2020
Yeah,
with a lot of the racial tensions
Mm.
and things that were going on there because he spoke up and had some things to say that a lot of people in CCM circles, certain circles, would have just been like, "All right, he's out." And
yeah,
he's kind of spoken about that on some of his albums recently.
That makes
yeah.
sense. All right, and then number 2, Owl City against number 15, Andrew Peterson.
Ouch.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have put Owl City in this if they weren't voted to be worthy of being in this tournament. Like
Right.
I know he is. I know he's a big Christian, and I guess he's covered like a Getty song and things like that. But I've never thought of him as part of like the CCM community
Right.
personally.
Yeah,
But
he's one of
he
those
was
that are
voted to
just in
be
that
here,
that
so
weird middle space that is a believer but never started in being marketed in Christian circles until
Right.
afterwards. Like he started mainstream. Same for Tori
mhm.
Kelly, really. She was discovered, I think, on YouTube and then signed a mainstream deal, and then she did a gospel record in the last 4 or 5 years. But prior to that, she's mainstream, which I think is great. I think that more Christians should be doing that, where you don't have to
Oh
have
yeah,
these genre definitions. I wish
Right.
the CCM label would kind of bust up and just be based on the music genre itself rather than it being under this huge umbrella. But that's just my own
Yeah.
personal
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
yep. A lot of Andrew Peterson fans out there. Do y'all think it's enough to take down Owl City?
I don't think so. I
I don't
really
think so.
wish there were because Andrew Peterson is amazing and one of my
Mhm.
favorites of
Yeah.
all time, but he is a world-class lyricist. So even if he does go out in the first round, people should go listen to his music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Who do you all foresee winning this region?
Ugh.
I think NF just based on last year.
Yeah, it could come down to NF and Lecrae,
Mm.
which
They,
you know that would make sense, and I think that would be. I think that it kind of represents probably where a lot of the most creative Christian music is happening right now. I
mm,
think that reflects that the last decade or so in an interesting way. So I wouldn't be mad about that.
Yeah.
Lecrae and
I'm gonna
NF faced off last year, and
Oh, who won?
NF won. It was close,
Was it
but
okay?
NF, yeah. What were you gonna say, Josh?
and NF had a lot of fans lobbying for him consistently and
Mhm.
retweeting just about everything. So there was a lot of
Mhm.
lobbying going on there. I think it's going to come down to NF and not Lecrae, but Toby Mac. I think
Mm.
he's
Mm.
actually going to
Oh,
be slipping at
interesting.
last, and it'll be down to those two. And NF will beat him.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Mm. All right. Do you all have any predictions on the who will win the whole thing?
It will be the Lord of the Dance, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, if it's not Larry Norman, I'm not interested.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm so curious to see like who like which fandom decides to rally because I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of yeah.
I don't know. I could weirdly see the Me Without You fandom kind of just taking the place of the Five Iron Frenzy fandom. Not that I think they deserve it, right? But I think I could see that fandom rallying in a similar way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
think
that
I
could
think
be.
Switchfoot will win. Maybe
Okay.
I just think that
Really?
because they were the runner up last year.
So close, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of just where what my gut said, but we'll see.
I'm gonna vote with my heart and say Rich Mullins is gonna pull it out. He's gonna beat Amy Grant
Oh,
and he's gonna take the whole thing.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not gonna happen, but
nice.
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, he could. He almost took down Five Iron Frenzy.
He
Um,
doesn't have to. He doesn't have to worry
but
about them this year. So
That's true.
that's true. Um, well, y'all have any other thoughts? Anybody you're mad at me for leaving out or anything?
it's a travesty. All the people that you left off. It's just
Yeah,
a
I
travesty.
know.
Yeah.
The number of times I'll have to say they were in it last year is probably like
Yeah.
You just need to
You
have
should
like a
just
I
stock
need a
message
bot.
already
Yeah.
ready to just like
right.
tweet immediately as soon as they
Exactly.
send it.
Yeah, no, you should just set it up as like as a keyboard shortcut on your iPhone. You can just like
Yeah.
put in one character and it'll just
Yeah,
type
I
that.
should. I should.
No, I think
Well,
you did a good job putting it together. Thanks for doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's gonna
thanks.
be
I
Yeah.
fun
don't
to
see
see
any glaring errors
how it all
really.
goes.
Any
I
glaring
appreciate that.
omissions. It
Yeah.
looks good.
I
It's
appreciate
gonna be
that.
pretty fun.
Um,
It's such a hard thing to put together because of Josh what you mentioned like because CCM is so not organized by genre because it's purely organized by existing in the Christian ecosystem. This
Mm.
is so
Yeah,
difficult. I'm looking at like the 10s, the 20s, and it's just making my brain hurt a little bit. But I
Right.
think it
yeah.
looks good. It's a good sampling of what we've had
It,
over the last
For
decade. So
sure.
hats off to you.
it
yeah.
used to be so easy. You could just walk into the family Christian store and see if that artist CD is there or not.
Right.
If it
Right.
is, they're CCM. If it's not, then they're secular.
Yep.
Yeah. You
But
just-
not so easy now, as
Yeah.
noted by Kanye West topping the Christian
Oh my gosh.
albums chart for the last 200 weeks or whatever
Right.
it's been.
That's
Right.
insane.
Kelsey, will you tell people where they can find you online and anything you might have coming up soon?
Yeah, gosh. You can find my work at christianitytoday.com. I just had an article, like you mentioned, go up earlier this week about CCM and who's writing and making documentaries about the history of CCM, which I think is a really interesting story we're seeing unfold right now. I'll have an article in their print magazine next month about the translation of worship music. So you can find most of my writing there. I'm on Instagram as Kelsey McGinnis. I think I can never remember what name I use different all these different places, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Threads. I'm pretty easy to find. Uh, all of those places because no one really knows what's happening on social media, so we're all kind of staying everywhere until we figure out what happens.
Sure,
Yep.
sure. Thanks so much for coming on, Kelsey.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Josh, you want to tell people where they can find you online and
Sure,
anything you're working
sure.
on?
Yeah. I am on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Twitter, I think my username is jbay all the way. Um, I'm JesusFreakHideout.com. I write reviews semi-regularly, so you'll probably see one or two of those a month. And then I have my own music blog. I'm a list nerd, much like Eric is, so I have 90 CCM lists and rankings and all kinds of stuff at joshbaylog.wordpress.com, where I put all my favorites there. And sometimes I'll write little articles about Christian music, but it's all music based. So anything there, I'd love to interact with you there. And looking forward to this. It'd be fun.
Really appreciate you coming on. Kylan, tell people where they can find you online and anything you want to plug.
Hmm. I'd rather not.
Okay.
No.
Don't look for Kylan.
No. Church Jams Now podcast. It's wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Church Jams Now. I feel like we're pretty active, not just in like promoting our show. I think just in the conversation, like we're pretty active in the CCM Twitter space. So we'd love for anyone watching this to come and tell us reasons why we're wrong about anything. That's kind of the stance that we've decided to take at this point. We're just so excited to talk to other music nerds about CCM.
Awesome. I also want to shout out my friend AJ Simmons, who said you should get together a panel to, talk about the bracket when you release it. So
Good idea.
it's AJ's, reason that you're here, and I'm glad he suggested it because it's been fun. And I'm going to try and do an episode between every round with different guests. So got a few people confirmed for that already. So I think it'll be fun. So thank you all again for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching, and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.